Hi, welcome to the first episode of Synced with me. My name is Daniel, and I'm just a recreational film nerd who obsessively looks over the movie credits of every single movie I watch. For me, the soundtrack is just as important as the screenplay. So come get inside the minds of the people who are making me feel this way. Hello.
Hi there.
Thanks for being here with us today. This is Tiffany Anders, music supervisor extraordinaire, worked on shows like Reservation Dogs, Pen 15, most recently Good American Family, and she has an upcoming show called The Lowdown starring Ethan Hawke, premiering on FX on September 23rd, which is also my birthday.
Oh,
Um,
happy birthday.
Thank you very much. So your mother, Allison Anders, is a
Mhm.
legend and a pioneer indie filmmaker.
Yes.
Tell me, did that influence your career as a music supervisor in any way and how that did?
Yes, 100%. Because music was a big part of our lives growing up in general, and I was a music fan. had no desire to go into film or writing or directing or acting or any of that. I was a musician. I collected records. I went to a lot of shows. As her career started progressing, music became a bigger part of her films, and I started seeing all the problems that she had in regards to getting the music that she wanted. Also, all the fun aspects of it, which was creating new songs, doing on-camera bands, fictional musicians, and her relationship with her music supervisors. So I'm fortunate that I knew that it was a job, like I knew that there was this role, and I had her music supervisors who are legendary, Karen Rackman being one of them, and Howard Parr, another music supervisor that she worked with. On one of her films, Grace of My Heart, there was the soundtrack had to be created before the movie could be filmed. I actually wrote a song for the movie and got to perform it. And I met her music supervisor, Karen Rackman, during that process. And I just thought this is the most amazing job to have. So after a while, with being in the music world of writing music and being an indie artist, I had been living in Seattle and New York, and I decided to come back to LA. And I thought, I want to look into how to do that job. And my mother kind of discouraged me from it. And she said, it's a lot of music business. I don't think you're going to love that. But I ended up really loving that part of it as well. Because as a music supervisor, your role is kind of like a win-win for everybody. You're kind of the middleman between two creative people, entities. So it's like, being able to make those dreams happen for both a musician and a showrunner or film director or whatever is really, really rewarding. So I find all aspects of music supervising rewarding.
We're all excited about your new show coming out, Sterling Harjo's The Lowdown.
Yes.
Star-studded cast. I mean, Ethan Hawke, Kyle MacLachlan, Keith David, just to say a few. Would you be able to give us a little taste of some of the needle drops we're expecting to hear, or is that a secret?
I can tell you that it's set in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's a noir, and a lot of the artists that we are using are kind of Tulsa, Oklahoma legends. So that can range from like the Gap Band, Lee Hazelwood, J.J. Cale, Leon Russell. Those are kind of the heavy hitters of the whole vibe of the show. Yeah, it's got its own kind of groove, and the music definitely plays a big role in it because it's a vibe throughout the whole show, and it's been really fun working with Sterling again, and creating this world, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like you said, this isn't your first time working with Sterling. You worked with him on Reservation Dogs as well. How did
Mhm.
how did you meet? And I guess what was it about you that maybe made him want to work with you more? And I mean, work with you again.
Well, Sterling actually had been on these Sundance Writers Labs. He was a mentor. I think he had started going to the Writers Labs himself, and then he became a mentor to other writers at the Sundance Labs. And my mother was a mentor at one of the Sundance Writers Labs. And she had talked to him a bunch, and she thought, oh, you should meet Tiffany because you guys like a lot of the same music. So that never came to fruition. We didn't meet for years and years and years. And then we started following each other on Instagram. And I started, posting all this stuff, music stuff that I liked. And we started messaging back and forth. This is before Reservation Dogs. And then he kind of said, "Oh, I have this project. I might, I might reach out to you because we connected on things like Lee Hazelwood, who's a musician from Tulsa, and Jessia Davis, who was this Native American musician from Tulsa who has this incredible story where he played with everybody from Bob Dylan to George Harrison and Taj Mahal primarily, and has kind of gone under the radar. Nobody really knows who he is. So we got to use Jessia Davis in Reservation Dogs. We're going to be using him in the Lowdown. Um, so that we just had this bonding music moment, and so I got brought on to Reservation Dogs, and he had told me that this was coming up. I mean, I was heartbroken when Reservation Dogs ended because it's really been, a great experience for me working with Sterling because him and I do have this kind of kindred musical connection, that sometimes you don't always get because you're serving a project in a different way. But him and I really, have a flow with the music, and yeah, so I'm glad that he made this one. And it's different, it's different, but we're still using the stuff that we love.
No, yeah, I was also really upset when Reservation Dogs ended. I love that show. It's so fun, such a great, amazing, and Taika Waititi has a great part in it as well.
Yeah.
I want to talk about A Good American Family, which is
Yes.
your most recent show, and it has been doing very well on whatsong.com, and people are loving the needle drops. So
Love it.
there was one personally in particular that blew me away, and it's not hard to guess. I'm curious if you can guess which one it was.
Ooh.
I'll give you a clue if you need it.
Um, well, there's a lot of crazy needle drops in that show. Well, I hope it was the Shiloh cover by Wise Blood.
Exactly. That's exactly the one. That's exactly it.
Are you coming to bed?
Okay.
So obviously that was unexpected. It's a Neil Diamond cover. And so I guess my question about that is how does something like that, I mean, Why is Blood, how does something like that come to be? And how did you put that together?
So, it was interesting. The showrunner and she had wanted to use Shiloh. It was in the script for 102, I think. And it was on her playlist in the beginning. And I'm a huge Neil Diamond fan, and I love the song. And we really felt like the song mirrored kind of Natalia's inner it was kind of her story, so we really felt like it lyrically tied in and just had a cool vibe to it. And so she had it written in 102, and then we were struggling with this one scene in 103. And we had been through so many tracks trying to figure out how to make this work. It was one of those moments that music supervisors have occasionally where nothing seems to be landing right. And it was like a thing of like, is score going to work better here? I kept feeling like it was a score moment. She kept feeling like it was a needle drop moment. And even score and needle drop, everything we tried, it was getting harder and harder and harder. Just nothing was landing right. So then we tried Shiloh there and it worked, and we thought, oh my God, we're using it again. We used it in 102. And I said, you know what? I don't think it matters. I think it's resonating. It's taking on a new meaning. The song is the song is fitting the character so much that it's kind of becoming the theme of the show. Like I didn't think it caused any, people to go like, oh my God, it was used in, 102. Why is it being used again? Type of a thing. And so we kind of went with that. We kind of went, okay, well, it worked there and it works here after all the songs that we tried. Maybe it's the song of our show. So after we tried it in 103 and it worked, Katie Robbins said, maybe we should do a cover of it at the end of the series. We hadn't even gotten there yet. We were still very early on. And I said, okay, I'm going to start thinking of singers, and I thought it would be great to have a female perspective on this song, for it to be female vocals and for it to really mirror her journey. So we went out to a few different singers, and Wise Blood is one of my all-time favorite artists around, current day, anytime. She's hands down. I mean, I've wept at her albums. I used her in You're the Worst, which was, almost 10 years ago now. When I first heard her record on Sub Pop, I used one of her tracks in that show. So I've been a fan for a long time, and I just knew that she could kill it, in terms of the emotion that it needed. And what was great about it was that she actually just wanted to do the vocals. She didn't want to come in and have her band come in and do it. And that kind of put it at ease for me, because I thought, this is great because we can have our composer, our brilliant composer, come in and shape the song so that it fits over the whole ending, and it can be he can tie in his themes and his beautiful work into it and make it something special that works for the show.
Got to be one of the best, feelings when everything goes according to plan, everything comes together perfectly. It's got to be one of the best parts of the job.
Exactly. Yeah, it really was. It really was.
Yeah. And, as a fan of the show too, I think people appreciate, especially musically, people appreciate callbacks and reflection moments to earlier times in the show. That's something watchers will really notice. Oh, I've heard that song before, and
Yeah.
even if they don't, it's a subconscious thing as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's really awesome to hear that, you're thinking about the themes of the show, musically as well, because I think, people appreciate that very much. Okay, well, so now we're gonna do a little section I like to call Guess That Sync.
Okay.
I'm gonna play some of your past syncs. I've got
Okay.
6 here. Um, and yeah, let's see if you can see where it comes from. Sounds like you got it.
I know it. The one and only Redbone, Come and Get Your Love, Reservation Dogs, episode 105.
Episode 2. Also, the episode is also called "Come and Get Your Love,"
Yes.
which I thought was kind of funny. Well,
Yeah.
well done, well done.
Yeah.
That was a really funny scene with
Oh
all.
my gosh. So funny, isn't
Was,
it?
was
And
that
that
written in the script, or did you come up with that?
Yeah, so that was all in the script. And Redbone, famously Native American rock band, and they they had that hit. And I love the whole episode of it where Cheese doesn't know the song and he's native and
Uh, come and get your love. Come and get your love. You don't know? I don't know. Oh, Jesus Christ, you should know it, boy.
Yeah.
really good.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next song here.
Okay.
Bring it. What?
All right.
10:15.
That's right.
All right. Phew. I actually know this because this was one of those moments that music supervisors have where nothing's working
Okay.
over a scene. And this was one of my recommendations where I finally was like, it was a funny story because it was my recommendation after we'd gone through a bunch of tracks trying to fit something in. And then it took forever to get the clearance on it because Will Smith was not getting back to us. And I finally had to have the girls, Maya and Anna. I said, can you reach out to your agent? Because I don't think he pays attention to the music side of his life anymore.
On your mark, ready, set, let's go. Dance floor pro, I know, you know, I go psycho when my new joint hit. Just can't sit, gotta get jiggy with it. Ooh, that's it, now honey, come ride.
Maya, the door. Mom, get it.
And so they did, and then he responded, but it was like one of those down to the wire, like we're in the mix. I still don't have his approval. And yeah, we got it. But I do love that scene. I thought it worked well. I thought the song worked well.
Yeah, it was fun by the pool.
Yeah, I thought it sounds like a pool summertime song and people will remember it.
Yeah.
And like I said, we tried a lot of things and they weren't landing right.
I think
So
also the la 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 lends well
yeah,
to the kids playing.
yeah, it's such a 13-year-old in the 2000s song.
Okay, let's do the next one.
All right.
All
Two
right.
done already.
And I would do anything for love. I'd run right into hell and back.
What do we got there?
Good American Family.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Our character really liked that song.
I would do anything for love. I would do anything for love. Look at you.
And it really also thematically, lyrically fit his character and the themes of the show.
All right. We're rolling.
All right. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Sometimes
Well, I know that's a beef track.
That's right. That's exactly right. That was a
Definitely.
that was a really fun scene with Stephen Yoon on guitar.
That was really great. That was really great. He was great on the whole series. We had to do some pre-records with him too, and he was absolutely wonderful.
Lately, I'm beginning to find that I should be the one behind the wheel.
All right, next track.
Oh, I've got more?
Two more. Let's see if you got it.
Okay, okay.
I'm gonna try to, I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna try to trick you on a couple of these, but it seems like you're doing way too well for me to do that. So,
She's a good girl, loves her mama, loves Jesus.
all right.
I mean, Pre-Fall and Reservation Dogs. One of
That's
the high points of my career is being able to license a Tom Petty song. Come on.
Oh my God. Was that a hard one to clear?
It wasn't too bad, actually, but he's a legendary legacy artist. He's one of my favorite songwriters of all time. I mean, him and Neil Young are my favorites. I mean, hands down. I went and I saw the last show that he did. I went to the concert. So being able to license one of his songs was huge for me. Huge, 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 just as a fan.
Okay. Last one
All right, let's see if I get this one.
for five. One more.
Slip inside the eye of your mind. Don't you know you might find a better place to play?
All right. What is it?
I was so thrilled to license this that I even tried to get some cred somewhere to get some tickets to the show. Oasis, Everything Sucks.
Yes.
I do have a little insight, little fun fact. I went through the proper channels to license two of their songs for Everything Sucks. And a friend of mine was playing in Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds, and she was texting with him, and I said, "Hey, tell him I licensed two of his two Oasis songs for Everything Sucks." And she's texting him, and she told him, and he replied, "Tell Tiffany I love her." And I thought, oh my God, I got some cred from Noel for licensing some songs of theirs for Everything Sucks. So that was very exciting for me because I'm a big Oasis fan.
Do you think Liam would have been as happy about it?
Well, Liam doesn't have any songwriting credit, but clearly he has to approve too. So I think Noel gets the bigger chunk of change when it comes to these licenses because he's the only songwriter. But man, it was exciting to be able to use Oasis. And I just saw them here. I mean, I saw them in the UK at Wembley Stadium, and it was so amazingly fun, and they sounded so great. And I love them, and I want to keep licensing them as much as I can.
Absolutely. Well, that concludes Guess That Sync. I've got a
I
few
did it. I got them all right.
for six. Incredible. I've got a few more questions for you. These a little bit more fast question, fast answer. What are some of your favorite syncs in other people's shows?
Okay, so I love
Movies count too.
the sync in at the end of Breaking Bad,
Oh,
last song,
yes.
the Badfinger song, Baby Blue.
Maybe.
gave me chills. That I loved that work that Thomas Golubic did on that show. I thought it was fantastic. So that was a big moment for me. That's the one that comes to my head first.
Okay, what's your favorite sync that you've ever done?
Whoa, it's so hard. There's so many.
I know.
There's so many. I have to say, I think I like the Wise Blood Shiloh
Yeah.
because I got to create something, and we got to do something unique. And I think she killed it. And I think Marcelo killed it, the composer. And I loved putting that together. I loved having some creative input on everything. And I think that's my favorite so far.
What is your hardest clearance that you've ever had to that you've ever gotten?
Oh, there's so many. There's so many hard clearances out there. I have a hard clearance right now. Um, there was a song by an artist called Stacy Q, and I had to clear one of her songs for a movie, an indie movie called Cruise, and I could not, me and my music coordinator at the time could not find the proper licensing person. And we ended up having to call somebody that lived out in the Inland Empire in California, and it felt really wrong. I mean, I think a lot of music supervisors have stuff like this, and it took forever. It was one of those things where it was a hit song, and you're like, why is this so hard to find? Why the rights, And I think every music supervisor has had one of those.
Yeah.
That's one of them, for instance.
But you got it cleared.
We got it cleared. We did. We did. Yeah.
How often do you get turned down?
I'd say somebody always turns something down on a project. You always have at least one or two. We had some on Good American Family. Usually it's just an artist's choice of not wanting to license their music. Sometimes it can be budget, but yeah, I'd say there's a couple times every project that you work on that somebody denies you.
What's the difference with working on films versus TV shows?
Films are very long. They can take a long time to finish up. TV shows for the most part, tend to move very quickly. And you're working fast and it's fast and furious, and films will be like, oh, all of a sudden 2 years later, we're ready to wrap this up.
So this is the inevitable question, with AI changing every industry, what do you see as the future of sync for people who might want to get into the music supervision industry?
I think I'm not too worried about AI taking my job. I mean, maybe I'm being naive. I think our jobs again are like we're kind of like we're middle people for creatives. So and in that role we are creative. So I don't really see a world. I see a world in which AI could start generating library music, you know what I mean? Like for background stuff, and take jobs away from musicians, which is terrible, horrible. And I see AI helping with searches because it already does that to us. I mean, we have Spotify, which feeds us an algorithm that keeps us in this jail. And an algorithm jail, I call it. And I feel like I'm the person that I am used to usurp that, to go out further and have the human element of what Spotify is already, you know, um, being used for basically, because anybody can go on Spotify and go, oh, I want something that sounds like this, and be fed the same 10 artists, over and over again. And I think music supervisors are used for their knowledge and for their ability to, go out and find new artists or find undiscovered gems or go and talk to people at record stores and talk to music fans. And I just don't foresee AI being able to do that. So, that's the creative part of our job. Our other creative part of our job is negotiating. And that's also a very human thing that needs to happen. You need to have those relationships with people. You need to have relationships with musicians and labels and producers. And, so I feel like it's a safe career path. But in terms of AI, I do. But again, maybe I'm being completely naive. I just know as a music supervisor and a music fan that's had to deal with something like Spotify feeding me the same stuff over and over again. I mean, it's great. Sometimes I do find stuff, but you still need to go out and discover stuff, and I don't think AI is going to be able to do that.
I don't think. Well, on the topic of going out and discovering stuff, what's some advice that you can give as a music supervisor to, say, a starving artist who wants to get their music placed in sync?
Um, I'd say it's great to be a part of one of these pitch companies, small indie pitch companies that go out and pitch your music to supervisors. That's great. You can do it yourself if you start researching what a music supervisor is working on, what their interests are. For instance, if somebody was from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they had made this record in the 70s that was kind of country and folk, and they were Native American, and they came to me and they said, "Oh my God, I saw you're working on this show, The Lowdown, and I have this record that, you might be interested in." I definitely listen to it because it's what I'm working on right now, and it's the vibe I'm looking for. I wouldn't come to me with, an electronic album from Germany. I know, because right now I have no use for it. But hitting people up at the right time, I think, is a good way to do it. See what they're working on, hit them up at the right time, and keep on keeping on.
On keeping on. It's great advice. Well, thank you so much, Tiffany Anders. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you so much for watching. Let me know who you want me to interview next, and I'll be sure to reach out. I hope you enjoyed, and I can't wait to check out The Lowdown starring Ethan Hawke and Jesse Ed Davis.